first and foremost, thank you for coming. I recognize that we all live very busy lives. It's like what half the workshop is about. So for you guys to prioritize coming here, it already shows that like you care about strengthening your family, right? It's funny. So when I was leaving, maybe like an hour before I was leaving, I asked my oldest son, Elio, who's almost 7, I said, and I would have never done this before the workshop, and I said, oh, I'm really nervous. And he's like, why? I'm like, I don't even want to do this workshop. I'm so nervous. And you guys, for some of you that know Elio, he's, I don't know, so he kind of like quieted his voice. He's like a louder kid. And he said, Mommy, you'll do fine. And I said, no, do you think maybe I shouldn't go? And he said, no, you got to go. And I said, well, what if I make a mistake? And he said, just laugh and just keep going. So that's what I'm going to do. But like that is, in a nutshell, what this is about. So I do that to him all the time. Like he's started, with sports and school. And sometimes when I'm frustrated, I'm just like, just go, just get out the field, just go, you'll be fine. But like he like looked me in the eyes, he quieted his voice, and that's like what I've been trying to model for him. So that was pretty cool just to see it in action. And honestly, so I've been working on this workshop for like a month, and it's been a blessing to me because I would be like looking at stuff, clinical stuff, and I was like, I don't do that. I should do that. So the past month, I've been like really trying to do that with my 3 very different kids. And it's been really cool. So that's my hope for you guys, to leave with a renewed sense of like your purpose of parenting, and just to be reminded of like what really strengthens a family. Because I feel like, there's parents here that have fully grown children, young families, brand new parents, right? So there's very different family systems, and it can be really overwhelming. I feel like I don't want this to be at all like feeling guilty or I'm not doing enough, because I think we feel that a lot. Especially with social media, right? You're not giving your kids the right kind of food. The food dies. Are you spending enough time with them? Is the house clean? Are you getting them in enough, extracurricular activities? It's very overwhelming. That's kind of my vision of this, is to just get back to the basics and making intentional connections with our kids. And they don't have to be like new. You don't have to carve out new things to do with them, right? You don't have to save up money to take them on a big trip. It's really being intentional with your kids. And also, we'll talk a lot about like our emotional wellness, because what I highlight in this workshop too is that like our family is like an emotional ecosystem, right? So how you're feeling, if you're not feeling mentally well, it's gonna show to your kids, and they absorb that stuff. So that's my vision for tonight. And I also don't want to be lecturing the whole time. I feel like I would like, if you are willing to, like the more vulnerable we are, the more interactive. I feel like you're not just going to learn from what I'm saying. I want to like learn from each other. All right? So thank you. So I'd love to hear like what brought you guys here today, if you want to share. Yeah. Right? Sure, just like I know you came here to support me, but just like when Ray first, showed this, like what drew you to this? What did you think that you needed or wanted to be reminded of? Okay. This will be very useful. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you again. Yeah, and originally, when Ray brought the idea to me, we started out by it being like, how can we identify when our kids are struggling? How can we identify poor mental health? Um, and that's definitely a valuable topic, and I have it in here at the end. But I think that the more impactful thing we can do is just to like open the channels of communication and take care of ourselves and model that to our kids. And then like with that, if you have an open channel of communication, you're going to better see if your kids are struggling, right? Okay. Let me just take a sip of water. So just a little bit about me too, professionally. So I have been a licensed mental health counselor for 8 years, but I've been in the field specifically working with kids and families for over a decade. I started my career at Green Chimneys Residential Center in Brewster, and that was really a significant part of my life. So that is, for people who don't know, I worked in the facility where kids are having really significant behavioral issues at home, really disrupting the family system, and the parents cannot have them in the home anymore, so they live at the facility, and parents can come on weekends. That's like a really hard thing, right? So I worked in the dorm initially with young, like females 9 to 16, and then I moved to the male dorm. So my job was pretty much to raise them during the week. And, it was very difficult at times. But the reason I say that is because I became a mom in between that, and how my perspective changed once I was a mom, and understanding like what these parents are really doing and sacrificing for their kids. It really was impactful. And I saw, even now I have like, taking the steps for my private practice, and I work a lot with young kids 9 to 25, and I work with, especially the young kids, I work with their families. And it's pretty much like similar themes, right? My kids aren't listening to me. They're really struggling. I don't know what to do with them. Just a lot of parents like enabling things and not knowing it, giving into things, just try to keep the peace, but it's really disrupting the family. So a lot of that work that I do with families, I've tried to implement in this. Okay, so when we talk about mental wellness, what does that look like for your day-to-day life for you guys? Like, think about a moment where you felt stretched really thin. Probably a moment ago. But like really, and if you guys don't know the answer to this, this is important, right? Like what does mental wellness look like for you guys? Mm-hmm. That's the goal, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So as parents, we carry many roles, right? If I were to ask you, who is a parent in this room? Raise your hand. Who is a teacher? Who is a coach or has been? Who is a husband or wife? Who is a grandma? Right? Who's a brother? Who's a sister? Who's an employee? Who's a boss? Right? There's a lot of roles that we have and responsibilities that we bring into our home. And that is, we get to the terms of emotional contagion and co-regulation. So emotional contagion would look like, right, when you walk into a room and it feels really tense. So it is the transfer of your emotions to someone else, right? The emotions are shared and spread to someone else. And it happens within families because we're so closely connected, right? And I'm going to be speaking for myself a lot in this. But even, I'm sure you can recognize when your baby starts crying and you don't know why, or your kid starts tantruming, you feel yourself getting escalated, right? You're thinking how to fix it. Sometimes if my kid is not behaving in public, I'm feeling embarrassed, so I'm trying to stop it. So that is like emotional contagion in real time. But the good thing is, so the chaos can be spread from one another in families, but also like the calmness can, and that's what co-regulation is. And that's why, when you have a baby, right, everything is about regulation. They're crying, you're trying to soothe it, right? This should continue throughout into adolescence, right? When my son is yelling at me, my initial thing is to yell back. That never works out, right? So they are looking to us to calm their nervous system because their brains haven't developed it yet. So we need to model that. So if I am, and I've done this past month, right? My son spills milk right after I said, please don't spill it. This is your last time having it in the living room. He's not paying attention. He spills it. I want to go nuts. This past month, I've kind of paused, and we'll talk about the pause reset, because it's also like, what do we want to teach them? Do I want to teach him that I'm going to lose it if you make a mistake, right? He obviously purposely didn't do it. So that is what co-regulation is. And the goal also is, like, we want our kids to be able to self-regulate in the future, but they can't get there until they learn from us how to regulate. So that's our job. So what emotional cues do you guys send off to your kids or your spouse when you're stressed? I could name a few, but I'll let you guys go first. Come on. Are you guys all like sweet and... Yeah, sure. And they're like sponges. They pick up on that. Your tone of voice, right? Your facial expressions. So that's a really great one. You guys, you got nothing? Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, we all get that way. There's nothing wrong with that. You're a human, right? And maybe they should be doing that stuff, right? But the way that we present it, like snapping, or, even like if me and my husband like argue or something, then my kid asks me for something, I snap at him. He just walked in the kitchen. He didn't do anything, right? So, a lot of times I ask, like, what are our kids seeing us do, right? And then if he gets frustrated and snaps at his brother, then I yell at him. But I'm like, I didn't model that, right? So, okay. So sometimes view yourself as like you are the emotional thermostat of your family, right? So it's your job to regulate your family as that emotional ecosystem. And instead of thinking, like, how do I stop this behavior? Like I kind of said, like when they're acting out in public and stuff, ask yourself, what does my child need from me right now? And sometimes just that simple shift in perspective can really change how you're going to respond to it. Okay. So building connections through small moments. I feel like this is a gold nugget in this workshop because, again, like I talked about with social media, like, we're never doing enough for our kids, right? Taking them on big trips, I don't know, getting them the best clothes, giving them the best food. So building connection is not like carving out new things to do with them, right? They're called micro moments. And I've really learned this with my middle son, Theo, because as sweet as he is, he loves attention all the time, and he wants to show me things all day long. And I found myself, once I started, like, this was on the forefront of my mind, I started, seeing myself say to him, like, oh, in 5 minutes, I just got to do this. I just want to throw in laundry. And then I realized, like, this kid is waiting for 2 hours just to play with me for a few minutes. I know, I'm a monster, right? I'm sure we've all been, right? So these are why micro moments are so important. So they're brief, they're intentional opportunities. They can last like 30 seconds to 2 minutes, but there's very important things that you have to do in this, right? Like eye contact, maybe getting on the floor and playing with them for 2 minutes. Really, like listening to them. Sometimes I find they're like get to the point, right? Like, but I'm not even listening to them. I'm just waiting for them to stop talking so I can move on. I know, it's horrible. And I found, like, even I found this one, like, this was an example, saying, I am so glad to see you when they wake up or even when they come into the room. So I've been doing that to them. Elliot will walk in the kitchen, and I'll kind of, like, shift him and say, I'm so happy to see you. And his response, it's almost like he's, like, surprised, and, like, he'll hug you. Like, it's really, I hope you guys do this stuff because it's really cool to see their response. Even like there's this thing of when you hug your kid, actually don't let go. Like wait, and they'll hug you for a long time. They won't let go for a long time. So that stuff is kind of cool. So, and also like the micro moments and the building connection can be really helpful in transitional periods. Like that's where connection kind of can live. Getting into the car. Because those transitional periods are hard, right? We're yelling at the kids, get in the car, get your things. But if you find something, 30 seconds to connect on, it can just de-escalate, and that can be a helpful transition. So we don't have to do this now, but I put in the workbook just daily rituals to build connections, right? Think about, like, what are some ways that you're already connecting with your kids? And then making them daily rituals, so that will give your children a sense of safety and rhythm. And do something that's like realistic and doable for you, right? Not creating more pressure to do things. Make it simple. Remember that connection is not about doing more, it's about being present in the moment that already exists. Okay. So effective communication with your kids. So think about the last meaningful conversation that you had with your child. What worked well and what felt hard. So this might be good because you guys have kids of different ages. Like, what do you feel like are difficult things to communicate? Like, where is the communication a little ineffective? Okay, so how do you handle it? Because I'm sure that's exhausting, right? Almost defeating, like whatever you say, it's going to be an issue. Really listening? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and that's a good answer, right? Because even say it's something that like is so ridiculous, you're like, I can't even hear this. So hearing them out and almost like making them talk it out without you saying like, this is ridiculous. I can't believe you're not getting that, right? I don't know. I don't have older kids yet, but almost responding if they said something, almost responding like, all right, well, like, why would you think that would be a good idea? So then they can answer it. And then it's like not a good idea. Don't say that yet, but be like, okay, well, I personally wouldn't think that would be a good idea for me because A, B, and C. And kind of keep pushing it back on them, listen, it may work like 1 out of 10 times. But like, kids want to be in control. So when they feel like you're not telling them what to do and they come to the conclusion themselves, a lot of times I feel like you're the one raising them. You raise them right with the right values. So they'll probably come to a decision that you're okay with. And if not, we'll get to this too, like, especially with younger kids, I feel like we're in the time where, like, we rescue too much, okay? We want to do everything for them because we don't want them to struggle, because we love them so much, but it's actually detrimental to their growth. So if they come up with something that is like, you're like, this is going to be horrible, but it's not dangerous and it's okay, maybe let them go through it, right? That's a hard thing. We'll get to that. But, okay, so healthy communication not only helps your children feel seen and heard, but also models emotional intelligence, problem solving, and respect. So why does it matter? It promotes emotional security, it builds trust and connection, and it encourages open dialogue about difficult topics. Being present and attentive. Listen to understand, not just to respond. That's something that I've been really trying to work on, right? When you listen to understand and not to fix or correct, shifting that approach really can change your response to things. Use emotionally honest language and validate their experience. And also, like, one of the questions down here is, when I make a communication mistake, do I circle back and repair it? This is important. Like, have you ever kind of lost your temper on your kid? Yeah, and then you felt bad about it. So the repair sometimes is more important than the rupture, right? Because you're also showing your kid, like, it's okay to make mistakes, and modeling, like, taking accountability for them, and moving on, right? And that also, like, validates their experience. Okay, yeah, that's a powerful part of connection and good modeling. So the next one is the importance of limits and boundaries. So this is a big one for me. But setting limits is actually, like, the most loving thing that we can do. Actually, like, a lot of like, my clients in their 20s, they've, like, talked about not having a lot of, like, limits or rules as kids, or maybe there weren't very good boundaries in their family, and that actually, like, when kids don't have those boundaries and those rules, they'll have more anxiety because it's not consistent, and they're not, like, they don't have a structure, right? So it's easier to think of, like, rules not as walls, but as guardrails, right? We do it to, like, protect them. And they're going to push back, right? But we know what's best, and if we're mixing, like, effective communication with those boundaries, that's like that, love and logic kind of theory. And it also, like, healthy boundaries teach kids that it's okay to say no. It teaches them how to manage disappointment and frustration, and how to respect others' needs and limits, right? When you say no and they're not listening, that's not respecting you, and they're going to need that skill when they're older. It's also important, too, I think I, like, already mentioned this, but to have them make mistakes when they're younger and not when they're older, and it's more, like, detrimental. And that would be, like, the harm of rescuing too much. So when your child is struggling, like, how strong is your urge to step in and help? Right? I think even when my kid, he's learning to tie his shoe, I'm, like, sitting there like, let me just do it. Let me just do it for you. I want to get out of the house, right? But it's not, that's, like, almost stealing his self-confidence for myself, right? And I'm just modeling to him that he's not capable of doing that, right? So let me teach him that now when he's going to mess up on his shoelace, rather than when he's going to mess up, texting and driving, or when it's legal, or much worse. And also, like, how do you feel when your child is uncomfortable? When they start to get, like, annoyed, or, like, have you ever, like, paused and thought about, like, how you're feeling in that moment? Me too. Mm-hmm. Okay. And is that what you do? Okay. Well, so 50-50, that's good. So, like, can you see a difference when you don't do it sometimes and when you do? Maybe you should start doing that 100% of the time. Okay. So, yeah, so rescue often comes from love, but like, what we're communicating is, like, is this child, like, is he capable of doing this, right? What he be seeing. Um, so every challenge we smooth over is a missed opportunity for our child to grow resilience. And we don't want that for our kids, right? We want our kids to be as mentally strong and resilient as possible. So just be mindful of that shift from, like, fixing to, like, coaching and encouraging, kind of sitting on the sidelines and helping them through it, not doing it. You sure? Yeah, that happens in my house all the time. Um, so that's really hard for me. Actually, my husband is really good at it, but it would be like sitting there. I mean, it's hard, like, without an example, but say, like, the shoelaces, right? Say my son's there, like, maybe say he does know how to do it and he's just, like, lazy, right? And he's, like, kicking off his shoe and stuff. Like, we got to go somewhere. The correct thing to do for them would be, like, I maybe, like, I hope you find a solution for that. Like, we gotta go, so we're gonna be late for whatever it is, like, and you might have to be late, or, like, maybe wear flip flops, or you gotta, so whatever it is, putting on them, like, to problem solve, right? It's a really hard thing to do. I feel like that goes back to rescuing too. Like, my kid, like, forgetting his water bottle going to school, right? I felt like I was almost, like, in tears in the car. Like, my kid's not going to drink all day long. Should I bring it to school? And I did. I brought it to school. Okay. Right? You would have too. And if you, like, other moms might think, like, okay, yeah, like, bring the kid his water, right? But honestly, they would be okay. Right? If your kid forgets his homework or forgets a book and texts you, like, oh, Mom, please, I need this. Of course we're going to want to bring it. But if you don't bring it, do you think that they're going to be more invested the next time to make sure that that book is in their backpack? Right? Yeah. So listen, it's not going to be fixed overnight. That's why, like, everything I put in here, I'm like, oh, I got to, it's just, tonight's about, like, being mindful of all this, because it's really hard to do that, and you want to make your kid's life easy, but it's almost like short-term gratification over long-term. Like, you want to teach your kid to be capable of doing those things, right? So that's just, like, an example of so many things that you could do. Okay, so I strategically put the parent reset tool right after the limits and boundaries, because you're definitely going to have pushback on those. So this is, if you guys saw, like, the pause for the anger, this is pretty similar to that, because it's normal for our kids to push back. So this is a simple yet powerful emotional regulation tool designed to help parents pause, recenter, and respond intentionally rather than just react impulsively in those emotionally charged moments. This tool also provides an opportunity to model self-awareness, emotional regulation, and values-based decision-making to their kids, right? Like, how amazing if we could model the reset tool for our kids to do, right? When we reset ourselves, we reset the tone for our home. So, this would be pausing. Even a 30-second pause can change the entire dynamic of a difficult moment. Taking, breathing, and then reflect. Like, what value do I want to lead with right now? What do I want to teach my kid right now? I want to yell at them, but that just teaches them that they made us angry, and okay, right? And then responding. Choose your next action based on intention, not emotion. What can I say or do now that aligns with my parenting values? And a lot of times, like reset affirmations can be really helpful. So these are short, powerful statements to kind of anchor you back to calm and clarity. Is there anything so the examples are here, but is there anything that you guys say to yourself, like when you're having a rough day with the kids, or just when like you're stressed in general? Is there anything that you kind of say to yourself? Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So you're doing the reset tool all the time. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this exercise is designed to help you connect with your core parenting values. So, like, what do you guys hope your children remember when they're older, growing up in your home? This would be really helpful if you could gauge. Okay. Okay, like as a child. That's what you remember. Okay. Do you feel like your parents like intentionally did that? What do you think that they hoped you remembered? Okay. Yeah, that's important that you said that. I think that's for like a lot of people. Anyone else? Yeah. Like, mhm. Like physically, emotionally, right? Okay, great. So do you want to share like how you prioritize your kids feeling like emotionally or physically safe? Hmm. Yeah. Well, and you just described their like micro moments, right? That's your like intentional connection in a transitional period, right? They're coming home. You connect for what? What is it? I'm sure they're not staying 2 seconds. Yeah. Yeah. But honestly, that's so important. Yeah, that's so important. It really is. So that's a perfect example. Yeah. Mhm. Well, Ro, did you do the best that you could as a parent? You did, right? Sure you did. I mean, well, does it come up where your kids are like mentioning things that, or is it just your like? So honestly, what you're asking, I feel like, is the next few pages, because really, um, because like this is like a busy life, right, that we have, and being a parent is really hard. And like I said before, we're not just parents, but there's a lot of things that like can drift us apart rather than like keep us close together. So I think and I think it's the next page, if we have like 5 core values of your home, and you really like, you're not going to do it in here, but like take this home with your spouse, even your kids too. Like if you discuss as a family, like what are our top 5 core values? Because we think we know, and then like when you really ask yourself, you're like, well, these 2 I want them to be, but I don't do that. So actually, we could even go to the next page, because I'm so happy you asked that, because one of them, so this is the family values compass. It's pretty much like it could be your parenting North Star. So before I like created this, me and John did this ourselves, and the core values we had are at the bottom. And one of them is like faithfulness to Jesus, and I feel like we are faithful, but when we wrote it down, we were like, well, we're not really like doing that daily with our kids. Like I wouldn't say like we're doing it enough for it to be like a top 5 value. So that's how it like worked for us. So our core value, one of them is faithfulness to Jesus. Okay, so the daily practice would be pray together, talk about our faith, and specifically like what we've implemented is at night, instead of just like watching TV until they go to bed, John will read them a Bible story. Just a quick, and again, it's like 3 minutes. But like the kids have been asking cool questions, and even like we'll review it, like we'll start and John will be like, oh, what was that? And like Elio answered it, like that was the name, and we're like, oh, you were listening. So I would say, to answer your question, like really doing this tool. So it's helping parents clarify the core values that they want their families to be guided by, to reflect on how these values look in day-to-day parenting, and to use those values to make intentional decisions, especially in difficult moments. When your family knows its compass, decision-making becomes easier, discipline becomes clearer, and connection deepens. And you already have values operating in your home. Like I said, like that was our value, right? But this is your chance to name it, align with it, and then lead with them intentionally. Do people feel like vulnerable enough to share one value that they practice or like would like to practice in their family? Okay. Well, that would be good. This would be good, effective communication. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love. Yeah. Okay. Well, in Roe, that's kind of cool that you said that. Like, I didn't know if I thought of it that way, but that's what it was. So to answer your question of like, what can parents do to be like very intentional about your values, right? Like you knew, just like mine too. Like you kind of knew it, but like have this somewhere like in your room or something to be like, okay, these are my values. I know my values, but how are my behaviors going to align with them today, right? Like one of them I put on here, connection, right? That is our value, but I feel always like connected to my kids, but we're very busy with sports and, me working, John working late. And then I think about it, I'm like, we haven't had a dinner together, a meal together in like 3 weeks. Like they sit on their food trays, right? Like, no. So I put my daily ritual as like one screen-free meal, like we're sitting at the table together. And it's hard to do. Like, again, this is not about like I'm not doing enough. It's just a reminder. And when you have those values to see all the time, it kind of, you kind of know like, okay, I'm going to align with this value by doing A, B, and C. There you go. Thank you. See how that went full circle? Yeah. Please talk. Yeah. And also, like, giving ourselves grace as parents, too. Like, not giving into everything. I'm, like, running through the things that my kids say to me, a couple weeks ago. Theo is like, all you do is work. I'm like, I work 2 days a week, actually. Like, okay, I used to work every day. Or, Theo's thing is, like, you give so much, and my kids, like, verbalize everything. They're very, but you give a lot of attention to Lana, and nobody's playing with me. I'm like, dude, I played with you. Like, I did. Don't try to, So it's like that balance of, yes, I hear you. You're communicating something, but also, like, my boundaries, too. Like, I'm not going to be on the floor all day with you playing, right? So I think it's good to, like, keep that in check as parents, too, because that stuff can weigh us down. Like, oh, my kid said this, and, I'm not doing enough of this. So. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's important. And also too, like, it's funny when you're younger and you view your parents, right? They're like your heroes, and they just don't seem like regular people in a sense. Like, who cares, mom and dad? Like, they just got to do what they got to do. Who cares about their feelings, kind of, especially when you're little. They're not thinking that. And then as you become a parent, I'm thinking, like, my parents were just regular people. Like, they had a lot of things going on. It wasn't just about me and my brothers and sisters. So just, like, always shifting that perspective, too. Ryan, did you feel loved in your childhood? Would you say that's a... You could talk to me after. So the next 2 pages are, and I made copies too if you wanted to like take them home for your kids too. So they're called one-page miracles. So there's a parent version, and then there's a kid version. You can have the kid do it, your kid do it alone, or you guys can do it together. But it's really, it's like, what do you want? And it's not in like a vague, dreamy way, but in like a real life, how do you show up every day kind of way. So it's to help individuals and families live more intentionally and in alignment with their values and goals. By writing out what you want in the most important areas of your life, you train your brain to stay focused on what truly matters, right? So what do I want for my life as a parent? How am I showing up to my spouse, right? Like with work, finances, how do you want to balance showing up for your family and honoring like your work goals? So when you really intentionally think of all these aspects of your life, it's like it will give you more accountability to actually show up for them. And I feel like, so I use this a lot with my kid clients, because a lot of times, like, even asking them, like, how you doing today? Good? You have to, like, really ask them, like, specifically and, like, have them outline things, because then it's easier for them to answer. So that's just something, that's like a take home. And then I added, going back to like how this workshop originally started, and like being able to identify when your kid is struggling, when to step in, when to use community resources or ask for help. I just put a guide for parents to recognize like emotional and behavioral red flags, and also like community resources. And then I ended with just, I compiled the list of books that I've read myself and felt like they were beneficial as like in a clinical perspective for me as a therapist, but also in raising my kids. I feel like there's really useful stuff. The first one, Raising Mentally Strong Kids, I took like a lot out of that from this workshop. So if you feel like you're interested in that, then you have that as well. But that's all I got. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah. In terms of like unsafe, like being unsafe, like head banging or like. So as long it's not an easy thing to do, but as the rule is like as long as they're not unsafe and they're not like hurting themselves in any way, um, just be as calm as possible. Even if you would have to leave for a minute, if they're just like in the room and you could leave, walk into another room, because honestly, like there really is a science to like reinforcing that negative behavior. So if you're giving all this attention to a child who's having a tantrum, they're gonna feel that, and they're gonna know, like, never, like, don't give in. I would never give in. I mean, maybe I would, but you're not supposed to. But yeah, I mean, if you just gotta ride and ride it out, and if the higher that they go, the more they escalate. Like, again, going back to co-regulation, like, it's your job to regulate them, because kids, like, as frustrated as like you can be with them, their brains are not developed yet. They're frontal, like where they're like prefrontal lobes for a really long time. So they really like are, when they're so de-escalated, they really can't control it, and they need us to anchor them to calm them. So just being as calm as possible, even if you have to switch out with your partner, because I've done that before. I'm going to lose it, you know. But that's really the answer. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that happens in my house too. It disrupts the whole family. So it would kind of be managing the situation if you can, like, remove everyone else, and not like being neglectful, but not giving like you can't give attention to that right now. They have to regulate themselves, or you can say like a very like an encouraging thing. I'm here for you when you're able to calm down. I'll be right in the other room. Um, but yeah, it's yeah. So there are a lot of parents that do that. what do you think that taught them? What were you teaching them? Mm-hmm. And some things work for some families. Some kids would get really reactive to that. Yeah. But again, it's like it's communicating with them, right? Because that could be really embarrassing for them. That could also show, like, you have to act a certain way for like the public, but it's not. We're not as important, So, but it worked for your family, so I guess like with that, it would be just communicating with them. If it's not working. Yeah. Yeah, and that's important, like going back to your family compass and your values and communicating with them. Because, right, like what you do impacts the whole family, right? What your one child does impacts the whole family. So you're that emotional ecosystem. Yeah. 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 Yeah, yeah, for sure. As you're saying it, I'm running through my head like, oh yeah, I think about that stuff too, right? So one, understanding like there's only so much we can control, right? So not, not focusing your energy and your anxiety on things that are not in your control, right? And just just by you saying that, you guys are already aware that you want her to love you, right? You want her to be safe. You want her to know that you guys are there for her, right? Are you going to do that? I'm sure you are. Okay. Honestly, that's really all you need. Um, and it's hard to like, just like you said, like there's certain things for certain families, right? So there's not like one cookie cutter way to raise your kid, but just being aware of it, just like making sure that you guys feel like mentally well, right? And you're kind of fulfilled in other areas too, to show up fully for her. Um, and again, like even you saying like we have so much in our toolbox and so many resources, sometimes that like can be very overwhelming too, right? Yeah, like am I doing this and this and this? Is she this, right? Just go back to the basics that you guys are wonderful parents and really all she needs is love and that communication. So you are ahead of the game. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. We all say that. Yeah. Yeah. S- Yeah, that's actually like probably a common thing. I feel like with my thing too, there was so much information. I'm like, I feel like I can't put it all in there. But everyone does that, right? Even going back to like, that's why kids have so much screen time, because it's easier to just hand it over. I went through that specifically with my oldest son. It took me probably like a full year to finally be like, why am I held hostage with this iPad? I recognize that every time I give it to him, after he's asked and asked and asked, 5 minutes, please, he's so irritable. The light is gone in him. He's fighting with his brother, and then I end up yelling at him, taking it away, and it was a cycle for a whole year. I finally, like, something happened where, like, I finally did take it away, and it was pretty rough for 2 weeks. But I can tell you, now that I'm on the other side, it's the best thing that I've done. I always say it's one of the best things I've done as a parent. And not to say that all screens are bad, but just for my son, he's very sensitive to screens. And I know, even though it was really rough those couple weeks, I know that he is happy about it. He never asked for it. I felt like he was held hostage too. So in answering your question, I talked about myself. But I feel like sometimes, even though we're exhausted, you have to look at like long-term and not short-term gratification, because what your kids are seeing is like a slot machine, right? No, lost 50 times. Oh, mom said it finally, right? So it's just gonna, and that's not to like shame you, right? We all do that. But if they know consistently, like that goes back to limits and boundaries. Like it's a no. They might be persistent it might be like a rough 2-3 weeks. But if it's something that like you're really serious about, it's no. And I mean, that's like the simple answer of it. Like not, like no, you can't, but it's rough. I'm with you. But that is what it is. And that goes back to like that consistency, right? Like they almost, even though they're fighting you on it, it's going to help them in the long run, because they know that you're eventually gonna give in. So why would they stop? Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of too going back to like something clicked in my head with the iPad. Like I wouldn't give my kid like a drink or a cigarette if he asked me 1,000 times and it quieted him, because that is like bad. Like I know that's bad for him. It's illegal. So like why can't I just frame that? I know that the iPad is bad for him. Why is it so hard for me? Well, it makes him quiet, right? I have stuff to do. I have work to do. I have the dishes. I don't want him fighting with his brother, right? But I promise you will get, like, it really has. I feel like when I wasn't a parent and I heard people like, oh, no screens, I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, really, it's fine. But now I know, like, no screens for that. But sometimes you just gotta do it. But start with one thing, one small thing, and just like that. I guess that's too like what I want you guys to take away from this. Like, just start with one thing and just see if it shifts something in you and shifts something in the family system. I don't know if I answered that, but good luck with saying no. Yeah, I'm sure you could do it. Well, and you highlighted like the repair with her maybe was more like just as important as the rupture, right? Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you everyone for coming and sharing, and good luck. It's rough out there.